The United States has carried out an operation to overthrow Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. The politician and his wife were captured by American soldiers and are now on their way to New York, where they will stand trial. Maduro is accused by the Americans of crimes related to drugs and terrorism. U.S. President Donald Trump announced that the Americans will rule Venezuela until its safe transformation. At around 2 a.m. in Caracas, a series of powerful explosions rocked the city. The blast hit key military targets in the Venezuelan capital, an airbase, ammunition depots, and a naval port. Shortly after the explosions, numerous low-flying helicopters appeared over the city. Among them were American Apache attack helicopters, which fired on air defense systems. However, the heavy Chinook transport helicopters attracted particular attention, indicating the possibility of a U.S. amphibious assault. Several dozen minutes later, when videos of Special Forces operations on the streets of the deserted Venezuelan capital began to appear on social media, the U.S. president issued a statement revealing the purpose of the U.S. military operation. The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. According to U.S. media, preparations for the operation had been underway for many weeks and had been postponed several times, partly due to parallel U.S. operations against terrorists in Nigeria. CIA agents were to provide ongoing information about Nicolas Maduro's whereabouts. The operation to capture him was carried out by the elite Delta Force unit, which had been stationed in the Caribbean for several months, conducting intensive training, including indoor combat.
Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest.
Donald Trump himself admitted in an interview with the media that he watched the operation from start to finish, thanks to a live broadcast from cameras mounted on the soldiers' helmets. Several of them were reportedly wounded, but there is no information about any casualties on the American side. Maduro is on board the American ship Iwo Jima and is on his way to the United States.
It was dark, and it was deadly, but captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, it's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens.
In its initial statements, the Venezuelan government declared a state of emergency and condemned American aggression. However, when it became clear that Maduro had disappeared, other high-ranking politicians in the regime began to appeal for calm and assure the public that the government would continue to function. In the face of this cowardly attack, which threatens the peace and stability of the region, we call on the international community and all multilateral organizations to strongly condemn the North American government for its flagrant violation of the United Nations Charter and international law. Free, independent, and sovereign Venezuela categorically rejects the presence of these foreign troops. Diosdado Cabello, Maduro's right-hand man and formerly one of Hugo Chávez's most trusted associates, has come to the fore. He controls the military and security services. His uniform bore a symbolic patch with the flag of revolutionary Simón Bolívar, signifying a fight to the death with no possibility of surrender. This may herald further tough action by the regime. The removal of Maduro does not automatically mean the collapse of the existing system of power. On behalf of this great nation, I ask people to remain calm, trust our leadership, trust our military and political leaders in the situation we find ourselves in. Calm down. No one should despair. No one should make life easier for our invader.
Mucha calma. Que nadie caiga en el...
The news of Nicolas Maduro's capture has caused euphoria among many Venezuelans. However, the streets are still patrolled by armed troops loyal to the regime, so there are no real signs of a change in power yet. Meanwhile, spontaneous celebrations have begun in neighboring countries and among the Venezuelan diaspora around the world. I don't have any family here, only my son. My parents are in Venezuela, and I hope that I will be able to go there. My parents who are elderly and bedridden, and that I will be able to say, I am a nurse, I am a therapist, and that I will be able to return to Venezuela to take care of my father. Besides, my dad, being a political leader in Venezuela, saw this change coming. He said, daughter, when you come back, when this government is gone, you will return to Venezuela. And knowing that my dad in his lifetime witnessed the fall of Nicolas Maduro, that's a moving moment for me. It is possible that Maria Corina Machado, last year's Nobel Peace Prize laureate and one of the leaders of the opposition, will return to the country. Some experts point to her as a potential candidate for the presidency of a free Venezuela. It is already known that Nicolas Maduro is to face American justice. For years, the United States has offered a high reward for information leading to his arrest. In 2020, he was charged with, among other things, drug trafficking and organizing smuggling into the U.S. In August, the Department of Justice significantly raised the stakes.
The Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence.
Since September, the Americans have been conducting an intensive campaign of strikes against drug cartel boats. The regime in Caracas has consistently rejected Washington's accusations. In the fall, the United States reportedly demanded that Maduro step down and leave the country. In return, the dictator demanded amnesty for himself, his family, and his associates. Donald Trump, who spoke with him personally in November, reportedly rejected these terms and gave Maduro a week to leave. Our diplomacy is not gunboat diplomacy. Threats, because the world cannot be the same as it was 100 years ago. Gunboat diplomacy. I have so many cannons, so many ships. I put them in front of you, and you surrender or do what I want. No, that's over. Maduro's attitude became his downfall. Tensions reached their peak at the end of last year, when the U.S. imposed a naval blockade on Venezuela, detaining and confiscating tankers that were circumventing Western sanctions and transporting oil to Asia and Africa. Now, as analysts and politicians point out, everything is in the hands of the Venezuelan opposition. But the Americans are clear that if the regime tries to hold on to power, it will quickly share Maduro's fate. The lightning-fast operation by the U.S. military in Venezuela and the capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro sparked a wave of comments around the world. The head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, asked for details of the attack at the source. I have spoken with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and our ambassador in Caracas. The EU is closely monitoring the situation in Venezuela. The EU has repeatedly stated that Mr. Maduro lacks legitimacy.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has already lined up to speak with Donald Trump, admitting that he was not informed of the U.S. plans to attack military targets in Venezuela. Washington's decisive action against the Venezuelan drug trade has caused great concern in Iran, which has already felt the power of American missiles striking Tehran's nuclear complexes. The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs strongly condemns the U.S. military attack on Venezuela. We consider this a blow to the independence and territorial integrity of that country. There are mixed feelings in South America. Many Venezuelans who had to flee Maduro's regime are happy about his downfall. but the left-wing governments of Brazil and Colombia have condemned the U.S. action, demanding an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council. Meanwhile, Argentina's right-wing president, Javier Milei, has expressed his appreciation for the overthrow of Maduro's dictatorial regime. Argentina supports all actions by the United States and Donald Trump aimed at liberating the Venezuelan people from the dictatorship of narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro. Freedom is advancing. Politicians in Western Europe are cautious in their assessments for now. Both Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and the head of German diplomacy write about closely monitoring the situation in the region. There is also unrest in Iran, where social protests have been intensifying for several days, brutally suppressed by the regime there. The United States has announced that it will take action if the authorities in Tehran continue to violently suppress peaceful demonstrations by their citizens. In the background is the uncertain future of Iran's nuclear program, and what happened today in Venezuela, a close ally of Iran, is also significant. Even the Iranian authorities admit that the demonstrators have reasons to be dissatisfied, as Iran's economic situation is becoming dire. But this does not mean that they will not shoot at the demonstrators. We are talking to the protesters. Officials must talk to them, but talking to the rioters is of no benefit. Those who incite them will be dealt with accordingly. The protests in Iran, which have been going on for several days, continue. Their scale and the exact number of deaths are unknown, as Tehran is very careful to prevent information from leaving the country. U.S. President Donald Trump has spoken out in defense of the protesters. If Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Iran's response was not long in coming. State television attacked President Donald Trump, and at the same time Israel, accusing both countries of inspiring the protests and threatening to attack American soldiers stationed in the Middle East. Thanks to the statements by Israeli officials and Trump, the issue of the protest has become clear. We separate the legitimate demands of the protesting shopkeepers from the destructive elements, and Trump should know that American interference in this internal matter is tantamount to destabilizing the entire region and destroying American interests. The American people should be wary of their soldiers. Despite the ceasefire and the end of the so-called 12-day war in the middle of last year between Iran and Israel and the United States, the situation remains tense. Iran is weakened, losing influence in the region and allies around the world. Today, Venezuela, but this may make it even more eager to resume its nuclear program, which was at the root of the conflict.
I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. So I hope Iran is not trying to build up, as I've been reading, that they're building up weapons and other things. And if they are, they're not using the sites that we obliterated, but they're using possibly different sites. We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing. And I hope they're not doing it, because we don't want to waste the fuel on a B-2. It's a 37-hour trip both ways.
In recent years, mass protests have erupted several times in Iran, but each time the authorities have brutally cracked down on demonstrators and the organizers have been sentenced to death. It is possible that this time will end similarly, but the Iranian regime has never been so weak, and the international situation so unfavorable for it. The regime in Iran should closely observe what is happening in Venezuela. What happens in Iran in the near future may be crucial for the future of the entire Middle East. It may bring stability or unleash a new war in the region.